Hey everyone and welcome to Storytime. My name is Jake and today we are going to be looking at the subreddit r/entitledparents. So let's sit back, relax and enjoy some Reddit stories. My husband is in the army, so your house is mine now. So where I live there's a small army base, and around it is a housing estate where the families live. Part of this estate was sold to a couple of housing associations, and I live in one of those. The army families move around a lot, so people in those houses generally move every 2 years or so. Some a little more frequently, others less so. There's a row of 4 terrace houses directly across from me, and one of them was empty, ready for the new tenants. Here's where we begin. I took my daughter to nursery and then went shopping for some new clothes. This was at 9 AM. I get back about 11:30 AM and see a large moving truck in the street. To avoid them, I go to the other side of my property. I suffer from chronic anxiety and tend to avoid most people. I go to the front door and take the new clothes upstairs to sort. Whilst I'm there, I hear noise from my back garden and door. Looking out the window, I see a man with a large toolbox trying to open my back door. A woman behind him looking furious, and the guys from the moving company standing around with boxes looking bored. I run down the stairs and open the door, meaning the guy, who I guessed was a locksmith, practically fell through the door into my kitchen. He was surprised of course, and after looking around he was confused, because clearly someone already lived here. The woman then sighs dramatically and thanks me for finally turning up, because they've been there since 8 AM trying to get in. She just wants to get her stuff in so she and her kids can sleep. She waves the moving guys forward and then goes to get her kids out of the car. I'm busy trying to stop the moving guys from coming in with boxes, and her 2 kids, about 3 and 6, come charging into my garden. I've got a slide, swing, small trampoline and Wendy house there for my daughter to play with. I yell at them all to get out of my garden and stay away from my house. One of the movers looks in the window to my living room, sees all of my furniture in there, and waves his team back to the truck. His team leader pulls out some paperwork and begins going over it. The woman starts yelling at me, telling me I was a liar and a thief among other things. I've lived in this house for 4 years and tell her such, but she's having none of it. She gets right up in my face screaming at me, and I'm having trouble not bursting into tears and running away or decking her. The locksmith tries to calm her down and she starts having a go at him next. I call up the local police station office. There's one in the housing estate, but it generally only caters to the army people and such. I figured calling them to deal with her was the best solution. They arrive after a few minutes and take the woman aside. Her kids are still playing on my daughter's things, so I tell them to get off and go to their mother because those toys don't belong to them. They go reluctantly, and when their mother notices, she begins yelling again. Apparently, those toys aren't mine, they were just put there by the army for her kids because her husband is such a wonderful soldier. That this is her house, and I'm just some squatter trying to steal from her. This is when the movers came over to tell her this is the wrong address. She's moving into number 4, and this is number 14. She goes very silent, grabs her kids, and leaves the garden. I call out to ask her if she's going to pay for the damage done to my garden. Grass torn up by her kids and the movers, my door, from what it looks like the footprints trying to kick it in and the scratches from the locksmith, my bushes by the gate, movers and her yanking at them whilst waiting for the locksmith. She tells me no, because she's done nothing wrong, which is when I inform her that I have cameras installed that would have seen the whole thing. I ask the officers if they would like to view the footage, and one of them watches the whole incident take place once I bring out my laptop, which both cameras are linked to. And he says he doesn't have anything to collect the footage just now, but he'll come back later to get it. He also tells me that he will have to report the woman's behaviour to the base, as the family's bad behaviour can have repercussions for their soldiers too. It's now 5 PM. The officer here was collecting copies of the footage in case it was needed, and might be shown to certain army officials as an example of her behaviour. Husband turned up about an hour ago, and there was a huge argument across the street. Everyone could hear it, but not exactly what was being said. Either way, this family hasn't exactly got a good start to their time here. I can only hope they move away soon so I won't have to deal with that woman again. Well, he may have been a respected soldier beforehand, but after those videos, I'm sure he's not going to be promoted or respected anymore. Entitled Stepmother Gets Mad at something I wrote in my diary years beforehand. My stepmother isn't the greatest person. She's verbally abusive and has been married to my father for the past 14 years. She's caused me to deal with a lot of anxiety, and I have a little PTSD from this history that her and I share. She's done a lot of bad things, but my father hasn't divorced her due to my mother ruining his mindset when she abandoned us 17 years ago. And there's a lot of money and inheritance that would be involved in the event of a divorce. Now that the history has been shared, here's the actual story. Back when I was about 8, my grandmother bought me a diary. I had been obsessed with the littlest pet shop toys, so it was themed around them with a pink fuzzy exterior with a monkey stitched into it. When my stepmother got upset with me, or she thought I was hiding something, she'd absolutely tear my room apart. She'd find things and try to read whatever she got her hands on, or she'd find new things to take when I grounded her for the stupidest of things. What I can only assume is she found my diary one of these times because the events that unfolded next is the only logical reason I can come up with why she found out what was wrote in it. At the time, I kept my diary underneath my bed, in the rungs that held up my mattress. I came back from my mum's for the weekend. My life there was not much better than home, and my room was in an unusual distressed state. There were things on the floor and pulled out from the drawers, but I checked under the bed and found my diary was still where it belonged, though not exactly where I left it. Luckily, I kept the keys to the lock under my bedside table, somewhere she probably wouldn't think to look. A few weeks later, my stepsister came to visit. She's 11 years my elder, and at the time this event happened, I was 10, and didn't use the diary that often. There were actually never many entries that I put into it, as it was rather sporadic when I wanted to write into it. While my stepsister was in town, she asked me if I had a diary and I told her I did. She asked me if she could read it, and though I didn't know her well, because she was never around and lived across the country at the time, I agreed because I trusted her to some degree. The next day, my stepmother confronted me about one of the entries, and I knew she had gotten her hands on it as well because of what she fussed at me about. One day, I had taken my diary over to my grandmother's with me not long after I got it, because I was writing in it all the time at 8 years old. My grandmother lived across the street, and one day my stepbrother was over there as well, as he was quite a nuisance because he's as entitled as my stepmother, even at the age of 6. He was pretty bratty, and it was irritating. I had wrote in my diary that I wanted him to go home. Now, to know, I dated my diary entries. When I wrote this entry, it had been 2 years beforehand. So when my stepmother confronted me, it was kinda stupid at this point. She tore into me, saying, "What do you mean you want him to go home? This is his home. Do you not want him to be here? Do you hate us this much? You should be ashamed." Summarized from what I remember because it's been forever. She wouldn't let me tell her where I had wrote the entry the 2 years beforehand. And she just kept running me over and over and over, and I just kind of shut down. She shook the diary in my face the whole time, and I just stared at it upset because I couldn't get a word in and she was blaming me for not caring about either of them. I ended up grounded for what I wrote. I used the diary to let out my feelings, though many of them were angry, childish rants about people who were mean to me at school. I never mentioned her or my stepbrother, despite what she did to me besides that one entry. When she gave me the diary back, I put it under my bedside table and never wrote anything else in it. I was too scared that she'd find it and get upset with me again. It stayed there under that spot until I moved my stuff out of the house 2 years ago. I can't remember if it's still in a box or if I threw it in the trash. More than likely the latter. I never kept a private diary again. Instead, I ended up writing about my life through blogging sites around the age of 13. And boy, was I able to talk about her then to my heart's content. I hate that. I just think that's a complete invasion of privacy. If you have a diary and it's got a padlock on it, then it's private. No one else should be able to read it. But I'm glad that they were able to write online now. Boyfriend's mum expects him to act like he never moved out. So my boyfriend has what is essentially an emotionally abusive mother. Because of her, he has become very cold to the world at times, and he couldn't wait to move out, which he did at 18, and he later got a house at 20. Now, his parents are supportive, but she is extremely overbearing. When he and I started dating when he was 17, she told him that she thought it was time they got rid of me. What? She snoops through his things, shows up unexpectedly, and if he ignores her, she threatens to call the police. Once, he and I were watching movies and getting it on, and his phone kept going off, which of course we ignored. When we were done, he checked his phone, and his mum had called 26 times. Texted him that she was outside his house, and that if he didn't respond she would call the police and report him as missing. But she veils it all by buying him things, and bringing groceries over every once in a while. And how does she know what he needs? She snoops. She even pays for someone to clean the house every other week, which means the cleaner has to have a key. And the cleaner isn't from a service, it's her friend, who gives her the key and she gets a copy. She acts like he still lives at home and that his house is hers. When he moved in, she didn't let him enjoy things like setting his house up, making decisions, putting his flair to it. She went out and bought a paint she thought looked good, and kept telling him what to do with his furniture. The worst part is that while he hates her and claims he wants her out of his life, he doesn't do anything. I'm honestly scared of what will happen if we get engaged. She will probably get worse and dang well plan the wedding. I mean, I don't know the whole situation and I'm probably the worst person to give advice, but surely if he's not doing anything and he's giving in to her, then she should just break up with him. If there's nothing you can do, you don't want her in your life as well, and if she comes along with him, then yeah. Entitled dad who owns a computer cafe. This happened around the 3rd year of university when I went back home for the summer. My mum is Asian and dad is white. A friend of my mum, one who brags about her son being a doctor as Asian mums do, but still, asks my mum if I can help her husband cause apparently out of all the Asians, I'm the one who goes electrical engineer. So I go to his cafe and look at his 10 plus computers, and told him what I needed to do. I think it was best he installed the newest Windows 10, update the RAM on 1 or 2 of the computers, replace the hard drive on 4 to 5 of them, and sweep them for virus malware trojans. We negotiated price. I already had new parts since I work on my own computers, and just had to buy Windows, so $475 worth of materials. And I would only charge him $100 for the labor. Which is a deal because an electrical engineer would easily make more for 8 hours of work. I fixed all of them, and as the scans were going, I asked to be paid before I leave, and this guy only hands me $50. I told him this isn't what we talked about, and he goes, "Well, I never accepted that price. It's your fault for working for cheap then." Well, joke's on him. I syskeyed all the computers and went home telling him to suck it. and lo and behold, I get home to my mum screaming at me. Apparently, he goes and cries to my mum instead of an adult to call me. She goes on about her friend, blah blah blah. My dad gets home and she tells him. He looks at me and just loses it, laughing up a storm, asking if I really took his computers hostage for him stiffing me. Yes and no, to you non-tech savvy people, a syskey computer can be fixed by restoring Windows. Most people who go, oh no, syskey, is people who have data that can be lost on their system. So my dad calls him back, says he is my dad and heard what happened, explains that he's going to have to pay me $825 because he would make $350 for a day's work. Surprise surprise, dad's an electrical engineer too, with years of experience. And an extra $50 for trying to cheat me. He paid, but my mum was not happy at all. But this didn't stop the 2 or 3 other friends of hers asking if I can fix a laptop or desktop for them. That's like the perfect thing you could do. If you agreed on $100, just like verbal word of mouth, and this guy stiffed him over, then yeah, I would definitely syskey his computers and be like, no, you pay me the full amount or you don't have computers anymore. Hey everyone, I hope you all had a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you want to check out some other videos, then click on screen right now, or check out the playlist down below. If you enjoyed that video, then please do leave a like. And if you want to submit your own stories, then you can do so by joining the Discord in the top link in the description. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.